Compendium of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The seventh commandment, you shall not steal. Number 503. Question: what is set forth by the seventh commandment? Answer: the seventh commandment requires respect for the universal destination and distribution of goods and the private ownership of them, as well as respect for persons, their property, and the integrity of creation. The Church also finds in this commandment the basis for her social doctrine, which involves the correct way of acting in economic, social, and political life, and the right and the duty of human labor, justice and solidarity among nations, and love for the poor. Question 504. Under what conditions does the right to private property exist? Answer: the right to private property exists provided the property is acquired or received in a just way, and that the universal destination of goods for the satisfaction of the basic needs of all takes precedence. What is the purpose of private property? The purpose of private property is to guarantee the freedom and dignity of individual persons by helping them to meet the basic needs of those in their charge and also of others who are in need. What does the seventh commandment require? The seventh commandment requires respect for the goods of others through the practice of justice and charity, temperance and solidarity. In particular, it requires respect for promises made and contracts agreed to, reparation for injustice committed, and restitution of stolen goods, and respect for the integrity of creation by the prudent and moderate use of the mineral, vegetable, and animal resources of the universe, with special attention to those species which are in danger of extinction. What attitude should people have toward animals? People must treat animals with kindness as creatures of God and avoid both excessive love for them and an indiscriminate use of them, especially by scientific experiments that go beyond reasonable limits and entail needless suffering for the animals. What is forbidden by the seventh commandment? Above all, the seventh commandment forbids theft, which is the taking or using of another's property against the reasonable will of the owner. This can be done also by paying unjust wages, by speculation on the value of goods in order to gain an advantage to the detriment of others, or by the forgery of checks or invoices. Also forbidden is tax evasion or business fraud. Willfully damaging private or public property, usury, corruption, the private abuse of common goods, work deliberately done poorly, and waste. What is the content of the social doctrine of the Church? The social doctrine of the Church is an organic development of the truth of the gospel about the dignity of the human person and his social dimension, offering principles for reflection, criteria for judgment, and norms and guidelines for action. When does the Church intervene in social areas? The Church intervenes by making a moral judgment about economic and social matters when the fundamental rights of the person, the common good, or the salvation of souls requires it. How should social and economic life be pursued? It should be pursued according to its own proper methods within the sphere of the moral order, at the service of the whole human being and of the entire human community, in keeping with social justice. Social and economic life should have the human person as its author, center, and goal. What should be opposed to the social doctrine of the Church? Opposed to the social doctrine of the Church are economic and social systems that sacrifice the basic rights of persons or that make profit their exclusive norm or ultimate end. For this reason, the Church rejects the ideologies associated in modern times with communism or with atheistic and totalitarian forms of socialism. But in the practice of capitalism, the Church also rejects self-centered individualism and an absolute primacy of the laws of the marketplace over human labor. What is the meaning of work? Work is both a duty and a right through human beings collaborate with God the Creator. Indeed, by working with commitment and competence, we fulfill the potential inscribed in our nature, honor the Creator's gifts and the talents received from Him, provide for ourselves and for our families, and serve the human community. Furthermore, by the grace of God, work can be a means of sanctification and collaboration with Christ for the salvation of others. To what type of work does every person have a right? Access to secure and honest employment must be open to all without unjust discrimination and with respect for free economic initiative and fair compensation. What responsibility does the state have in regard to labor? It is the role of the state to guarantee individual freedom and private property, as well as a stable currency and efficient public services. It is also the state's responsibility to oversee and direct the exercise of human rights in the economic sector. According to circumstances, society must help citizens to find work. What is the task of business management? Business managers are responsible for the economic and ecological effects of their operations. They must consider the good of persons and not only the increase of profits, even though profits are necessary to assure investments, the future of the business, employment, and the good progress of economic life. What are the duties of workers? They must carry out their work in a conscientious way with competence and dedication, seeking to resolve any controversies with dialogue. Recourse to a non-violent strike is morally legitimate when it appears to be the necessary way to obtain a proportionate benefit, and it takes into account the common good. What is justice and solidarity among nations brought about? On the international level, all nations and institutions must carry out their work in solidarity and subsidiarity for the purpose of eliminating or at least reducing poverty, the inequality of resources and economic potential, economic and social injustices, the exploitations of persons, the accumulation of debts by poor countries, and the perverse mechanisms that impede the development of the less advanced countries. In what way do Christians participate in political and social life? The lay faithful take part directly in political and social life by animating temporal realities with a Christian spirit and collaborating with all as authentic witnesses of the gospel and agents of peace and justice. Question 520. By what is love for the poor inspired? Love for the poor is inspired by the gospel of the Beatitudes and by the examples of Jesus in his constant concern for the poor. Jesus said, "Whatever you have done to the least of my brethren, you have done to me." Matthew chapter 25, verse 40. Love for the poor shows itself through the struggle against material poverty and also against the many forms of cultural, moral, and religious poverty. The spiritual and corporal works of mercy and the many charitable institutions formed throughout the centuries are a concrete witness to the preferential love for the poor which characterizes the disciples of Jesus.